Hi there, I'm Dr. Trevor Keyler, and I am one of the physiologists and ecologists within the biology department at the College of St. Benedict and St. John's University. And today we have a timber rattlesnake that we are going to do a dissection. This was donated to us by Dr. Dan Keyler, toxicologist here in Minnesota. So timber rattlesnakes are one of the 2 rattlesnake species that can be found within Minnesota. These are typically found within the southeast region of the state. All right, we're going to start by looking at some of the external anatomy on a rattlesnake. The first thing you notice here are the scales. These are heavily keeled scales, meaning they have a little ridge on the center of them, and they overlap. And on the back, it's primarily for protection and prevents against water loss, and then you can see that on the ventral side here, that they are large, and it's a single scale that runs the width, and that helps with locomotion. We are going to have to be cautious when working this today because the fangs are still in there. All right, the scales are made out of keratin. It's the same thing that our fingernails and hair are made out of, and the rattle is also keratin. They put on a segment to the rattle each time that they shed, and this is actually a fairly long rattle that you would find in the wild. Typically they get hung up in rocks, and we find partial, very short rattles. So you can see the way those nestles, that's where you get that rattle sound to warn any would-be predators. They rattle this, it's actually very rapidly, it's 50 times per second, so 50 hertz. You can see that on the front here they have these deep pits, and that's why they are pit vipers, and those pits help detect body heat off of the mammals that they would hunt for prey. They detect infrared. Inside the mouth, again, I gotta be careful here, but they have a forked tongue. And that tongue is actually how the snakes smell, right? So they have these nares on the front of their head, the nostrils, and those are not used for smell at all. They're exclusively used for breathing. Okay? So they smell with their tongue. They flicker it in and out, and there's a little organ up in the top of their head here called the Jacobson's organ, and that's how they detect different odorants. So the tongue here, check out the way it has a sheath. So it's like a little pouch that it goes in and out of. So it's stored when they're not using it to smell. It should be bifurcated. There you go. There are the 2 ends. Rattlesnakes and pit vipers in general, most people think of snakes as laying eggs, and that is not the case. These actually give live birth. It's kind of a unique combination. They're what we call ovoviviparous, meaning that there are eggs within the female, and then those eggs hatch within the female, but they are essentially giving live birth. The fangs, they are hinged, and they can actually bend forward and backward, so they're able to retract them. So within the maxilla up here, they're hinged. They are also hollow, right? So they're like a hypodermic needle in which they inject the venom into their prey, and then their venom glands are right up here. Okay. So we got to be mindful of these as we work today. The venom of the timber rattlesnake is both cytotoxic, meaning it destroys cells, and it is also neurotoxic, meaning it affects neural function. Snakes do not have any ears, external ears at least. They have an inner ear, but that is, their hearing is based upon vibrations they're picking up within their body. And then they're also able to, if I could work side by side here, there is a ligament that connects the 2 pieces of the mandible so that they can actually wiggle their jaw back and forth to manipulate the prey. I don't know if you can see that. Right? Okay. I think we can move to dissection now. This is its dorsal side, and we're going to flip it over to expose the ventral side. And we're going to make a slit. You guys, some more external anatomy here. Starting down here at the cloaca. Right? So this is actually, a cloaca is a shared urogenital opening. So this is where the feces and urine, it's actually uric acid, but as well as the opening for their genitals, and this is where they would give birth. Right? You can see their heavily camouflaged, and they blend in really well with the rock or leaf, whatever's on the ground there. Very cool. All right, so just opening it up right here, the first thing we see is the trachea. And we know that's the trachea because it has those rings of cartilage. And you need your trachea to stay open, otherwise it collapses and you can't breathe. The esophagus behind it does not have that cartilage because you do not need to keep your esophagus open, only when you're swallowing. I'll show you in a second, but I cut into the lung and you can see how it's like honeycomb in there. Our lungs have little sacs in them called alveoli. Looks like little clusters of grape where gas exchange occurs. They're surrounded by capillaries. Oxygen moves from the lung, from those alveoli, into the blood. Snakes have an open lung with open sacs that are actually called faveoli. Right? So they didn't get too far away from the name there, but they're not closed like they are in humans. So it's got that really cool texture in there. So we're just kind of tearing that peritoneum now. One other thing you'll notice when I was cutting, it was very easy, and that is because snakes do not have a sternum. That is helpful for a couple reasons. Main one being they're able to swallow prey that is greater than the diameter of their body. Oh, the other thing you'll note, or maybe you wouldn't notice, is that snakes do not have a diaphragm, right? That is how we breathe. In fact, here, I'll give you an example here. Change gloves for a second. But when we breathe, your diaphragm flattens. Put this here. Right, and when your diaphragm flattens, it fills our lung. Right? The volume increases, which decreases the pressure in the lung and creates a pressure gradient, so air goes from the atmosphere into the lung when your diaphragm flattens. That's skeletal muscle. Snakes don't have that. Instead, what they have is their ribs expand. And when that does, that expands our lung or contracts the lung. Back to pulling this all apart. Okay, so the lung is starting right up here, and we can see it goes down all the way to here. I mean, that's kind of the common thing with snakes. There's two common things. All your organs they're elongated and exaggerated just because of the body plan. The other thing is typically where we would see paired organs and organisms, everything is offset and staggered. So here you can see I'm cutting open that lung, so see in there very well. Can you see that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you guys want to come take a look at that? This is the heart down here. Crazy. So that little sac I just cut away is the pericardial sac, and we have one as well. It prevents overfill of your chambers, adds a little bit of protection as well. But now you can see it clear as day. We have two atria, those are the very dark colored chambers, and then one large ventricle right here. So blood returns to the right atrium. Atrium contracts, pumps it into the ventricle. The ventricle contracts, pumps it up to the lung. It gets oxygenated blood at the lung, and then it returns to the left side of the heart, to the left atrium. Then again, it moves into the exact same ventricle, just on the other side where it falls into little chambers, so it doesn't mix as much, and then it's pumped out systemically. The other really unique thing about these organs, the heart being one of them, is you got to imagine here there's the esophagus and the stomach, right? And they eat very large prey, and that all their organs are able to shift, and they're very movable considered to ours to make room for that item being digested as it moves through the system. You can see this massive vein right here leading to the heart, and if we follow that down, it goes right to your liver. So the vein is where your blood that's been filtered by the liver is exiting the liver and returning to the heart. And we can see that portal system now, that very dark blue vein. Okay. Cut the peritoneum here. Again, very, very elongated. So if we follow this structure right here, all the way up, that is your esophagus, right? And that is leading into this very elongated stomach right here. So, let's see. they're eating whole animals, so the acids in their stomach are actually a bit stronger than ours because they have to dissolve bone as well. Things will remain in a stomach for days up to weeks within snakes before they're fully digested. Do we want to cut open the stomach? I don't think there's much in there. I kind of want to see if they have rugae like people, so let's take a look.
What are rugae?
It's just kind of like folds.
Okay.
In there. Rugae gastric folds. Yeah, they do, definitely. So you can see how it's ridged in there. Yeah. Gastric folds. Doesn't look like this snake had eaten anything terribly recently, because I'm not seeing anything in there. If we move a little more inferior here, you see this bluish greenish. Anyone want to take a guess what that is?
Gallbladder.
Yep, gallbladder. All right, so your liver is making bile, and then it's stored and concentrated within the gallbladder. Bile helps emulsify fats, right? So digest fats. Your intestine is right here coming off the stomach. So the stomach's going behind the gallbladder, and then it's wrapped in this peritoneum. So that is the intestine in there. All of this surrounding it is fat. Unlike us, they have what are called fat pockets, and you can see they're just that. They're these little pockets of fat, and they rely on those when food is sparse, and it's concentrated down here at the end of their body. So you see that all the way through. Okay. But here we go, now we can really see that intestine. So right up here is the first kidney. And then you can see as we move lower, they're staggered. Here's your other kidney on the other side. So kidneys here concentrating the urine, only they do not produce urine. Being reptiles, they produce uric acid. So it's that whitish pasty, it looks like bird poop, right? It's still nitrogenous waste, but that paste form, it's called urates, U-R-A-T-E-S. And they create that pasty uric acid just to help retain water, because it's sparse typically where these guys are living.